Eleanor Bradford clutched her worn, leather satchel as the stagecoach lurched over another rutted portion of the trail, her stomach churning with each violent bounce. Through the dust-caked window, she watched the endless expanse of prairie, grass ripple like an ocean, under the late afternoon sun. 3 weeks ago, she'd been serving tea in her aunt's Boston parlor, suffocating under the weight of propriety and dwindling prospects. Now, at 26 and considered a spinster by polite society, she was traveling west to marry a man she'd never met, a rancher named James Thornton, who'd placed an advertisement, seeking a practical wife for a simple life. His letters had been brief but honest, warning her that ranch life was hard, that luxuries were few, and that he needed a partner who could endure hardship without complaint. Eleanor had written back immediately, her penmanship steady even as her hands trembled, accepting his proposal without hesitation. Poverty, she reasoned, was preferable to the suffocating pity of her relatives and the sideways glances from former friends who'd all married years ago. She'd grown up with modest means before her father's death left her, dependent on distant relations, so she knew how to stretch a dollar, mend clothes until they could be mended no more, and make something from nothing. When the stagecoach finally creaked to a halt in the small frontier town of Redemption Flats, Eleanor stepped down onto the dusty main street, her blue travel dress already gray with trail dust, and searched the handful of weathered faces for the man who would be her husband. He stood apart from the others, a tall figure in a worn leather coat and a black hat pulled low over his eyes. James Thornton was older than she'd imagined, perhaps 35, with sun-darkened skin and the lean, muscular build of a man who worked from dawn until dusk. His face was handsome in a rugged, unpolished way, though there was something guarded in his gray eyes as they met hers. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair touched with premature silver at the temples, and offered a small nod that seemed almost shy for such an imposing man. "Miss Bradford," he said, his voice a low rumble that somehow cut through the noise of the street. "I'm James Thornton. Welcome to Redemption Flats." Eleanor extended her hand, expecting him to shake it, but instead he took it gently, his calloused fingers surprisingly careful. "Mr. Thornton," she replied, lifting her chin to meet his gaze directly, wanting him to see that she wasn't some fragile city woman who would wilt at the first sign of hardship. "I appreciate you meeting me. I'm ready to begin whenever you are." Something flickered across his face, an expression she couldn't quite read, before he nodded and reached for her satchel. "The wagon's just there," he said, gesturing to what could only be described as a dilapidated buckboard, held together with rope and prayer. Eleanor's heart sank slightly, but she kept her expression neutral. This was what she'd expected, after all. As they rode out of town, James remained largely silent, only occasionally pointing out a landmark or answering her questions with brief responses. The ranch, he explained, was about an hour's ride northeast. It wasn't much, he warned her again, just a small operation where he ran cattle and tried to make ends meet. Eleanor nodded, steeling herself for the ramshackle cabin she imagined awaiting her, perhaps with a leaking roof and a dirt floor. She'd known what she was signing up for, but as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, James guided the wagon up a long rise, and Eleanor's breath caught in her throat at what lay beyond. Spread out before her in the valley below was not the struggling homestead she'd braced herself for, but a sprawling ranch that looked like something from a painting. A magnificent two-story house with a wide wraparound porch stood proudly at the center, its white paint gleaming in the golden hour light, surrounded by well-maintained outbuildings, extensive corrals, and pastures dotted with what must have been hundreds of cattle. A garden bursting with late summer vegetables stretched along the south side of the house, and she could see fruit trees in neat rows beyond. Eleanor's hands tightened on the wagon seat as confusion flooded through her. "Mr. Thornton," she said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't understand. You said the ranch was small, that you were barely getting by." James pulled the wagon to a stop and was quiet. For a long moment, his jaw working as though he were wrestling with words that didn't want to come. Finally, he turned to look at her, and she saw something vulnerable in those gray eyes, something almost fearful. I lied, he admitted, and the bluntness of it shocked her. Not about needing a wife, and not about ranch life being hard work, because it is, but about the rest. He gestured toward the prosperous spread below them. My grandfather built this place from nothing, and my father expanded it. When they passed, it all came to me. I'm one of the largest landowners in 3 counties, Miss Bradford. I have more money than I know what to do with, and enough cattle that I could live comfortably for 10 lifetimes, without working another day. Eleanor felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her. Then why? She asked, and she hated how small her voice sounded. Why lie? Why advertise for a mail-order bride when you could have your pick of women? James's expression tightened and he looked away out toward his land. Because I've had my pick of women, Miss Bradford. I've had every eligible lady within 200 miles parade through that house. And do you know what every single one of them saw? Dollar signs. They saw a comfortable life, security, status. Not one of them ever looked at me and saw just James. A man who loves this land and wants someone to share it with.
Shook slightly as she spoke, like she expected me to say no at any moment.
Not someone to spend his money or climb the social ladder. He turned back to her, and the raw honesty in his face made her chest tighten. I needed to know that whoever came here wanted me for who I am, not what I have. I needed someone who'd be willing to marry a poor rancher, someone practical and strong who wouldn't turn up her nose at hard work. So yes, I deceived you, and I'm sorry for that. If you want to turn around right now and head back to Boston, I'll pay your passage and give you enough money to start fresh wherever you'd like. You have my word on that. Eleanor sat in stunned silence, her mind reeling. She thought of all the times she'd steeled herself for poverty, for the struggle she'd anticipated, for the sacrifices she'd been prepared to make. And now to discover it had all been a test, an elaborate deception to prove her character. She should have been furious. Any reasonable woman would have been. But as she studied James Thornton's face, she saw not manipulation but loneliness, the kind of deep, aching solitude that came from being valued for everything except what mattered most. I don't want your money, Mr. Thornton, she said finally, and she was surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. And I don't want to go back to Boston. His eyes widened slightly, hope flickering there like a candle flame in the dark. You'll stay? Even though I lied? Eleanor allowed herself a small smile. You tested my character, Mr. Thornton. It seems only fair that I test yours. You've shown me you're willing to risk losing everything you truly want for the sake of finding something real. That takes courage, even if your methods were questionable. She extended her hand to him once more. So yes, I'll stay. But let's start fresh, shall we? Hello, James. I'm Eleanor, and I came west looking for a partnership, not a fortune. It seems we both might have found what we were really searching for. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, imagine how many more incredible tales of courage, love, and unexpected twists await you. Subscribe to our channel now to never miss a story that will move you, inspire you, and remind you that life's greatest treasures often come in the most unexpected packages. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of story lovers today.